Good morning, lovelies! Today we're going to talk about the biggest mistakes that I have seen writers, usually male writers, make when they are trying to write good, strong female characters. Be it in books, movies, or TV shows. A lot of these guys come from a good place. They want to deliver femme characters and that we will root for and idolize, and they just fall flat on their face. If you're watching this video, then you're probably a guy who is writing a story that includes a few women major characters, and you don't want to get chewed out on social media because you made a Mary Sue, or they're flat and two-dimensional, or they're overly sexualized, or whatever. Here are my tips as an author, a professional critique partner, and an overall book nerd and screen geek on how to write women. First of all, write stories that are written by women. We write what we want to read. It's a great insight into how we want to see women characters portrayed. So make a list of, favorite women authors that you have read or want to read or heard about or hit the bestseller lists and start reading. Next up, if you've already done that or after you do that, is this. If you retain nothing else from this video, I want you to remember this. Give her a narrative arc that does not revolve around a guy. This is pretty easy if your main character is a woman because, by definition, main characters, they tend to have a lot going on, they tend to have a greater narrative arc than just some other character. But for side characters, this message is usually forgotten. She can be the love interest, sure, and end the story as the main character's girlfriend. I am not disavowing that. But she has to have a purpose, has to have a life and character outside of that. This is the #1 mistake that I see writers make, and when it comes to femme characters, they don't have lives outside of men. She only ever appears in the story to flirt or be in danger and or look sexy. Here is a serious question that I want you to answer. What does your female character do when your male character is not around? If you cannot answer that question, or the answer revolves somehow around the main character, you need to rewrite her. I've talked about the Mako test before on this channel because it's basically this. For those who don't know, the Mako test was named after the character in Pacific Rim, the giant robot versus giant alien movie that surprisingly failed the Bechdel test. But we wanted to give it some credit because even though there weren't two female characters who talked to each other about something other than a guy, it still had a pretty awesome female lead. Thus, the Mako test. There must be at least one woman character who has a narrative arc that does not revolve around a guy. Good examples of female side characters that have accomplished this: all of the girls in the Rick Riordan-verse, all the girls in Avatar: Last Airbender, most of the women in Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive. I mean, these are all stories written by men. And I'm including the women who end up in romantic relationships with the main heroes here. Because yes, you can have a female character who largely exists to be the eventual girlfriend and still give her more, still give her a narrative arc outside of that. Just like your male characters have narrative arcs outside of their girlfriends. My next tip, the sexy dominatrix has been done to death. A lot of writers, especially male writers, seem to think that they really need to tell people that women can be badass warriors or super smart bookworms and sexy at the same time. We know that's all Hollywood lets us see. Female characters have to be sexy. We're not allowed to be anything else. In the most extreme cases, she is sexy all the time, in every damn scene. It's exhausting. But even in the most minimal instances, there's still at least one scene where the hero sees her in a bikini or whatever, for no narrative reason that I can discern. Why does every single female character have to be sexy? And this happens even when the male character is going to end up with someone else. Give us women who are awkward disasters who cannot flirt to save their lives, or women who are aware that they're being flirted with and genuinely do not care about the guy flirting with them. Now granted, this last one usually ends up being the main character's girlfriend anyway, and I'm getting really sick and tired of seeing that one. Especially when the hero in question is an everyday Joe Schlub who should not logically be catching the attention of the deadly assassin or powerful witch. That is pure wish fulfillment on behalf of the male audience. To think that a woman will say she's not interested, that she's playing hard to get, and he just has to try harder. He just has to prove himself to her, maybe save her life a couple of times, and then she will be all over him. No. She said no, she's not interested. leave her alone. Also, we really need more platonic male-female friendships in fiction. Or even just sibling relationships. Shang-Chi wasn't the best Marvel movie, but it had some of the best platonic character chemistry that I've ever seen out of that franchise, especially where the women were concerned. Black Panther, same thing. Now going back to that Joe Schlub comment I made earlier, there's this thing in media where the everyman with the week of training manages to save the world or otherwise do the thing, while the female love interest who's been a warrior for literal decades cheers him on and sits on the sidelines. This makes no sense, even with the chosen one bullshit. Yeah, I get it. More wish fulfillment. And we're also living in a patriarchal society where men are expected to excel in the physical fields like fighting, and women are trained to cheer them on and not get in their way, regardless of the individual's actual experience and knowledge and skill set. If your story is about a Joe Everyman who becomes a great warrior with the help of a female fighter and possibly even hooks up with her at the end, there are ways to do that without making your female audience roll their eyes at you. Edge of Tomorrow did it perfectly. Tom Cruise's character spends the entire movie with this whole live, die, repeat time loop power and gets trained on alien fighting by Emily Blunt's character. For the climactic Act 3 fight, he's a hardened badass and she joins him in the final fight. Because of course she would. Why wouldn't she? What I'm trying to get you to do here is to avoid Trinity syndrome. This is a real thing defined by TV tropes, and it's named after Trinity from The Matrix. When we're introduced to Trinity, she has this great fight and escape scene where she takes out a bunch of police officers and then runs away from the Smith agents, and it makes us all think, oh, this woman is awesome, I can't wait to see what else she does. But then she doesn't really do much else. She does get a couple of other fights, but she needs to be rescued by Neo in every single one of them. She never tops her opener. That's Trinity syndrome. And it's going to really disappoint your audience. On a related note, beware the faux action girl. Faux action girls are characters who pretend to be strong female characters but need to get their asses saved by the hero in every single fight. This is usually accompanied by all the other characters telling the reader or the audience and each other what a powerful woman she is and how strong she is and what a great fighter she is, but we never actually see it. It is not shown to us because the writer just wanted to write a damsel in distress, but they're still trying to attract that feminist crowd, so they give her the strong female character label in hopes no one notices. If you want your strong female character to be rescued by the hero, fine, but let her return the favor, and I mean every time. So let's say that you damsel your strong female character twice in a single story. She is outmatched in a fight, and then later she is captured by the villain. If the hero rescues her from that fight where she is outnumbered and outmatched, let her return the favor in a later scene. She swoops in to save his ass. And then as for that part where she is then captured by the villain to be held as ransom or whatever, let her save herself in that one. You can even do that comedic thing where like the hero is, all geared up and ready to go rescue her and he's on his way, and then like she meets him at the front door because she's already busted herself out. Like, I love that trope. If you don't have your character save herself or save the hero as many times as she needs to be saved, you do not have a strong female character, you have a faux action girl. If she's not a fighter, fine, make her useful in some other way. Super smart bookworm is a common alternative, or an actress or a spy who is able to convince the bad guys to turn on their evil overlords, or a tech genius who cannot necessarily fight but she can build her own weapons, and the list is endless. But you don't want to go too far, because I'm sure many of you have already been thinking throughout this entire video, Chris, I don't want to make a Mary Sue. First of all, if you give your female character a modicum of competency, someone is going to call her a Mary Sue. We live in a sexist society, people are afraid of competent women, brace yourself for that now. Secondly, it's all about character balance. For every strength that a character has, male or female, they need a weakness to counteract it. No one is good at everything. Anyone ever play Dungeons and Dragons? When you first create a character and you're calculating their ability scores, you realize very quickly that they're going to have weaknesses. There's going to be things where they're just going to be bad at no matter how high they roll on their dice. So like a character who relies a lot on strength and constitution, like a barbarian or a fighter class, probably doesn't have much intelligence or charisma. A ranger character with high wisdom or dexterity will likely have similar weaknesses. And the wizards and sorcerers who are the most intelligent and or charismatic of the group, They have no muscle, no armor, and like 2 hit points. That's why they work in a team. The strengths complement each other and they watch over each other's weaknesses. The same principle applies here. The anti-Mary Sue crowd is right in that she can't be good at everything because no one is good at everything. She's got to be bad at something. So give her skills that she just plain does not have and has to outsource. Your Viking warrior woman has to team up with the nerdy wizard for magical assistance. The divine nun with actual holy powers and really strict morals might have to hire a thief or an outright assassin. A noblewoman born and raised in the city who is more than capable of handling politics and crowd control and court intrigue is gonna need the help of some sort of ranger or druid-like person if she needs to bail and live in the wilderness for a month. Those would all be really cool dynamic duos and or romantic pairings for fantasy stories. We should get on that. Point is, maybe try making a D&D style character sheet for all of your major characters to figure out their pain points, and then put them in situations where they get to show off their strengths, and then in situations where their weaknesses aren't just on glaring display. Additionally, we need moments of emotional vulnerability. Emotional vulnerability is more important than physical vulnerability in my opinion, because that's where the story is. This is one of those things that needs to be done with male characters too, but writers seem especially afraid these days to give female characters moments of emotional vulnerability because they think that that goes against the strong female character vibe. It doesn't. It makes her human. Give us moments where she feels hopeless and defeated and feels like she cannot move forward. Give us moments where she is awkward and fumbling over her words while trying to show one of the other characters that she genuinely cares about them. Giving characters PTSD has become something of a trend recently as we learn more about it, which makes sense because we put our characters through a lot of traumatic experiences, so experiment with that a little. What it all boils down to is write women as human beings. That's it. That's all we ask. If you feel you're having trouble with it, replace all of the genders and pronouns in your story with gender-neutral terms while you write your draft, and then figure out who's what in later revisions. Worked for Alien. You can even do a gender swap during your revisions. Just replace all the men with women and the women with men just for a single read-through. If anything seems weird or oddly over-sexualized or just weirdly unfulfilling, you know you have some work to do. If you have any questions for me, or you want me to look over your manuscript to see how you're doing, I do offer professional manuscript critiques where I will read through your work and tell you exactly what I think of them before it gets published, so you have time to fix it. You'll find a link to that in the description of this video. I also offer steep discounts to high-tiered patrons over on Patreon, so if you want that, or you just want to buy me a coffee every month, the Patreon link is also in the description. I will see you next time. Bye, lovelies.